Hello and welcome to The Broken Sword. Today we are doing something different as we appeared on a podcast.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
So hello guys, I am here today to bring you something slightly different. Recently, both myself and Jake were asked to come onto the Script Department podcast, and that is with our good friend Marcus Armstrong, who you may recognise because he has been on the channel a couple of times and he is the screenwriter for our upcoming short film project. In that, we talk about all things The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Tolkien, specifically all around adaptation. So I'm going to have a small section of it to show you all today, and if you want to see the full thing, then please head over to the Script Department YouTube channel, subscribe to them, watch their content, it's all great stuff. And really, I'm not going to waste any more of your time right now. All I'm going to say is sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Tolkien's work and to Middle-earth and things like that, which is why I kind of wanted to talk to you about adaptation and, you know, this being kind of a script-based channel and things like that. We're all writers here, so we all look at things from a screenplay point of view. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to chat to you guys about how successfully you think The Lord of the Rings actually manages that, and how the jump from a novel to film actually work. Do you feel as if Peter Jackson's vision for Lord of the Rings really kind of stands up to Tolkien's, and what do you think?
Oh, broad question. Yeah.
Such a broad question.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, in general, I think it holds up very well, as long as you're not too much of a stickler for the specifics.
Yeah.
As long as you can accept an adaptation is an adaptation, not a remake, then I think it does an amazing job, personally.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question as well, because the funny thing is we obviously got two books that were written by the same man, Mr. Tolkien. We got The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, that were both adapted into film trilogies by the same man, Peter Jackson. Both were done very differently and both were received very differently. So we've kind of got two perspectives of two different adaptations.
This is
one of the things I want to... Was certainly... Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of want to come to that, because the Hobbit, and we'll touch on The Hobbit a little bit later on, because they are so different. And I think they're two different, as you say, they're two really different processes of adaptation there, because I think for starters, with The Lord of the Rings, you have 3 books into 3 films, whereas The Hobbit, you have 1 book into 3 films. And there's a lot more that they've kind of had to add in there and whatnot to make that work. But to stick on the Lord of the Rings for the moment, the thing that gets me in terms of adapting it, and I think why it works quite so successfully, is thematic. And the way that they so brilliantly lift those kind of themes of love and courage and all these wonderful things, and deposit them down again, and the richness of the world that Tolkien builds. I think. Would you agree that on a thematic basis it really hits home, or do you think there are things maybe that perhaps it misses?
No, I 100% agree that it definitely hits, because a lot of people, let's say purists, Tolkien purists, will perhaps complain, Tom Bombadil's not in the film, or Glorfindel's not in the film. It's not a true representation of Tolkien's idea. At the end of the day, Tolkien's idea is presenting this story of courage, like you said, friendship. The fact that no matter how small or insignificant one person may feel, they can change the world. They can make a difference. And I think the trilogy of films brings that across as well as the books. It's a hit from me.
I'd agree.
Yeah, and I was going to say, to add to that as well, it's where the adaptation part comes in, where certain bits where those themes can be shown in a book need to be altered slightly for a movie. Like when you look at a character like Aragorn, in the book, he is very much, he already knows what he is. He's always the same person, basically from when you meet him to the end. Whereas in the movie, you need that character arc. And that's where the adaptation kind of comes into it, where, okay, technically you've changed the character quite a bit, but in terms of telling the story and the overall idea of it, I don't think it changed anything, and it makes it, all the same themes come across, but through adaptation.
For sure. I mean, because what you have there with the Lord of the Rings books is a huge resource of stuff and information. And interestingly, I was doing before this chat, and actually in in preparation for the project we've been put together, I was looking into how they brought Lord of the Rings to the screen and things like that. And it's an interesting story because originally the plan was to make 2 films, and they were going to compress the Lord of the Rings, the 3 books, into 2 films. And it just seems mad to me that would even happen when you think that we have a theatrical cut and then 3 huge extended editions that wouldn't even fit onto 1 DVD, and they were going to try and put that into 2 films. That just seems mad to me. Why?
Yeah, I can't even imagine the world that we would be living in today if that had happened.
I know. I mean, at the end, most of those things always just come down to budget, though, don't they? They just go, oh, we want to make it cheaper. And they basically went, hey, well, we could do the same thing in 3 movies. Because I'm pretty sure there was even things like they were going to merge Gondor and Rohan as just men and that kind of thing. They were going to do stupid things like that. I say stupid things, like you never know how it would have turned out. You don't have a clue yet.
Sure,
You've never seen it. But but they were definitely going to make some bigger alterations than they would actually manage to do in the end.
Yeah. Something I find...
for sure.
So something I find really interesting is when you look at an audience, a generic audience, let's say, who are just looking at the Lord of the Rings as a whole, as a story, right, as entertainment, whether it's the book or whether it's the movies, people kind of forget and kind of cloud over the fact that they're 2 very, very, very different mediums, right, literature and film, and things that work in a book definitely don't always work on screen. We forget that in a book, whether a character is talking or whether you're reading the narration or whatnot, everything is just being described to you. And one sentence in a book can be very hard to put across in one shot in a film, if that makes sense. So things have to be added, things have to be removed, and people forget that.
I think you're right. I think that the thing for me with adapting this is that they managed to get hold of they managed to bring the richness to the screen, because what Tolkien has in his work is a huge amount of backstory. And, he I think he quite famously has said he was writing a mythology for England and looking at that kind of thing. And so you have all of this work that has gone into the background of these books and things like that, that are reflected in his work. And what I think that it does really, really well is to bring that to the forefront in a visual way, because whilst you can describe these elements in literature and you can imagine them, you can't have that thread of visual continuity. So this led to this, led to this, led to this, and that's why we have this style of swords or this style of art or statues or whatever it might be. And I think it just captures it so well. It makes it feel as though it's a real living, breathing world, and we see that with with this great way that they set things up and then they pay them off, and that of course comes from the books as well. But in a visual way, you see Aragorn. We see the sword of the king, and we see that first in the Fellowship where Isildur uses it to cut the ring from Sauron. We then see it in Rivendell where Boromir picks it up and lets it fall to the ground, and then Aragorn picks it up and places it gently back down again, which is just a great moment of character. He tells us everything we need to know about those people, the sorrow and Aragorn and all this, that, and the other. And then finally in the Return of the King, we see it reforged. And that's just one object that is used to such great effect with very little description to tell a story and to tell elements of those characters. And I think that's something that, for me personally, perhaps I'm biased because of the medium I work in, but for me personally, I think that's something that is achieved to a really high standard in the films. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I think that example of the Shards of Narsil is a perfect example, because in the books